Hello, China. I enjoyed playing, as an actor, I enjoyed playing all of them because it's very rare that you get the chance to play more than one character in a film. So one of the great joys and excitements about doing this film was being able to play more than one role. So the very fact of playing all six was great. I think maybe the one that I was most intrigued by was old Georgie, the devil figure in the post-apocalyptic world, and because he's a character that exists inside another character's head. He's an imaginary devil, if you like. He's a product of fear, and I thought that was kind of interesting, playing someone inside Tom Hanks's character's head. Yeah. No, if you imagine doing six different stories with so many actors playing so many different roles, it was impossible just to work on one thing at a time, because we were all playing so many characters, and we couldn't just do one story. So we were jumping around from one story to another. So some weeks I might be 5 characters in 1 week. And other weeks I might not work at all, and it would vary. Sometimes I might get 3 days in a row playing the same character. Some days I might play 2 characters in the same day, and we'd be moving from one set to another. So the actors were running around, changing faces and makeup and going elsewhere. So that's how we did it. But then actors are used to things not being sequential, used to shooting out of sequence. So it was kind of like working in a theatre repertory company in a way. It had a sort of joyous spirit to it that was unusual on a film set. Yeah, well, all the actors are playing roles, different genders, different races. And this idea of souls being reborn through time and is very much a part of the film. Yeah, playing Nurse Noakes. When I read the book, she was a character that really made me laugh a lot. She's quite monstrous. She's a monster. She's a woman who believes that all the old people in her care are like little children to be chastised and beaten. So I found her very amusing. It was difficult to play that role because it was such a extreme prosthetic makeup that it was quite difficult to get used to. I think this film's so rare. It's such an unusual film in so many ways to watch and to be a part of. I can't imagine this sort of opportunity coming up very often. It's a really radically different film structurally and politically, very different film. So look, if I got the opportunity, I'd love it, but I can't see that it would happen too much. But. Yeah, I really love the story with the composer and the amanuensis. The Frobisher story, I think it's really beautiful because both those men, they're not black and white. They're both a little bit grey, in their motives. So there's a fantastic clash of wills in that film, and mistaken, but to do with ego, really. Their clash of ego, and I find that story really compelling. No, I'm very, very familiar with the concept of reincarnation in Buddhist philosophy, very much so. Yeah, it fascinates me, this idea. Not so much, I don't personally believe in reincarnation, but I do believe that every action we take in life has a repercussion, has an effect on the people who come after us. So everything we do affects other people, even no matter how small it is. Everything in our lives affects people. Somehow it's a continuation from the past and affects people in the future. And so Yeah, David Mitchell, the writer, talks about this being a cloud atlas, and he says souls are like clouds. Clouds change their shape, and so souls also change shape through time, and that's why it's called Cloud Atlas. This sense of things coming back, the cyclical nature of our existence, and so I very much agree with that. Yeah, I think everything you do affects who you are and what you do. And for me, working with Lana and Andy is something I've done quite a lot in the past, and I expect we will work together again. So everything we do affects the next thing we do. And working with Tom has been really wonderful. I think I've made a very good friend with him. So I would hope to work with him again, possibly one day. And in terms of the film, it's such an unusual film, and playing 6 roles is so unusual. It gave me a different understanding of what film can do. That it's a different film structure. It's a very different language, and I think film is often stuck in quite a narrow paradigm, and there are many more possibilities in filmmaking. And this film shows a totally different way of constructing, making films and viewing films. You're obliged, when you see this film, to take in 6 separate storylines told as one, and increasingly as a viewer you're seeing 6 separate stories become one thread, and that's something that you as a viewer have to do when you watch it, and I think that's really exciting. So yeah, to look out for projects that are more radical in their structure, I think would be something I'd be very interested in doing. Yeah, they when I first met them, we got on very straight away. When we first met, we clicked, and everyone changes, everyone grows. They've always been incredibly well prepared, really very, very well prepared as film directors, but also very warm human beings, so it's easy to work with them. And I suppose the change in them has been that they're maybe more fluid now than they were, maybe more open to constructing something on the day when you're in front of the camera. That they will let go of something and try something else, and I think that's great. Yeah, I love working with them, and I feel like I grow with them, you know. Yeah, I think she's beautiful, and and I really didn't spend much time with her on set, just 1 or 2 days, and so I didn't really get to know her until we were in Los Angeles doing press, and I think she's a really, really lovely person. But yeah, my experience of her is quite limited. But I remember seeing her in a film a long time ago. Was it in Balzac and the little Chinese? I don't know what it's called in China, the film she was in, but I remember seeing her many, many years ago. I think she's fantastic. Yeah, some of the films you would have seen, I often play the antagonist, and certainly with Lana and Andy's films I have done. All of the roles in this film are antagonists. They're all agents of control, if you like. They're controlling forces in their particular societies, people who want to maintain the order and the structure of the society in which they live. And if that means repressing other people, then that's what they will do. If it means killing other people, then that's what they will do in order to maintain their position in society and in order to maintain the structure of society as it is, because that's where they get their power from. Yeah. But in other films, I sometimes play the antagonist and sometimes not. Sometimes play very sympathetic roles, and the roles I play are very, very, very varied. Just the ones you would have seen, probably the roles I play in the films you've seen, tend to be more the villains, if you like, or the antagonists. But really, I have a very wide variety of characters in films. Yeah, I think one of the stories one of the stories I love most is is the love story between the two men. And I think that, because that goes through two stories, because we see Sixsmith as a younger man and then as an older man as well, and my character Bill Smoke kills him, but that story is very powerful because it goes throughout the whole film, and similarly some of the other love stories go throughout the film, and it's that power, that ability to think about the other person, not yourself, that is the film that can transform you as an individual and transforms the people in the heroes, if you like, in this film, that they have an ability to think of others, of not just of themselves. All the characters I play think of themselves, and David Mitchell says something about in an individual that selfishness uglifies your soul, and in a society selfishness leads to extinction. So if you're a selfish being in a selfish society, you will die. And if you can love and if you can give to other people, then there's a hope for the future. So I think it's very, very, very strong sense in the film. Yeah, one of the first things we did when we actually, look, this project was so exciting and unusual that by the time we all got together in Berlin and met together, we sat round on a big table and we read the script for the first time, and it was a very exciting day because we all knew that it was going to be a very different project and something we had to jump into, like jump off a cliff into it, you know, because we didn't know quite what it was going to be. And one of the things that happened on that day before we read the script was we heard the music that Tom Tykwer had written already. So the whole film was scored, the score was written before the film started being made, and that's how Tom works. So we were able to hear the music, and after having seen a sort of visual, they had shots and photos and images from all the scenes lined up on the wall. So we walked through the scene, through the whole film visually, and then we listened to the music. So we got a very strong sense of the emotional thread of the film, and that stayed with us all the way through. So it was very, very important. Well, it's very, very interesting that it was screened here because, I mean, again, like a lot of their films, it's a very political film, and it's a film which talks about revolution and talks about repressive societies, and so it's a very, it's an always pertinent film for everyone, every society in the world, because we all have a tendency to clamp down and hold on to the people who live in the countries we're in, and then to release that pressure, and so that film is very much about society and the individual and political structures, and so I think it's wonderful that it was screened here and had a good reaction. Well, personally, I don't feel particularly noble, and I muddle through my life like everyone does, you know, and I'm very full of doubts, and yeah, I'm drawn to doing many different characters, different roles. I'm interested in characters that are conflicted, have internal conflicts. So they may seem to be one thing, but actually they also doubt themselves in some way. That they've got a complexity and a contradiction about their psychological makeup. That's what interests me. So any character I do, the more complex they are, the more interesting they are to me, because I think we're all incredibly complicated, contradictory people, you know. It's not my first time in China. I was in China about 20 years ago, and I went to Kunming and Dali and Lijiang, and I had a wonderful time, wonderful time. Just explored around for about 3 weeks.
So you're just traveling?
Yeah, with a friend, and we were filming in Hong Kong and Macau, and then got a visa and flew into Kunming, and we hired bicycles every day and rode around the city and rode out of the city, and then we had a very long bus trip to Dali. We stayed there for about 3 or 4 days, and then we went on to Lijiang, which is the most amazing city. So we had a very special trip, and I really loved it. I loved meeting other Chinese people, and they were very, very friendly, and so I had a good time. So it's good to come to Beijing, because I've never been here before. I'd love to go to Shanghai. I'd love to see more of the country. And my knowledge of Chinese film is very limited, I think. But there are some very early Chinese films I would love to see. There's a couple I'd really like to see, but it wasn't really until the 80s with Chen Kaige, and and there were a number of films that suddenly came out in Australia and outside China that suddenly I was much more aware of Chinese filmmaking, and and then there are Chinese language films from Hong Kong or Taiwan as well that I've probably seen a few more, like William Yang's Yi Yi, or Ang Lee's films, like wonderful films. But I really my understanding of the history of Chinese filmmaking, I know something about it, but I haven't seen a lot of the great Chinese films, because they don't very rarely come to us, you know. But then of course films, all the kung fu films, things like Once Upon a Time in China, and like all those films that we saw when we were doing The Matrix. So I kind of know all of those as well, but it's limited. I'm going back to Sydney. I live in Australia, and I'm doing a film down in Melbourne in February, so I'll be working on that quite soon. Yeah, but I also do theatre, so the next thing after that is another play with the Sydney Theatre Company. Yeah. I hope you go and see the films I'm in, particularly Cloud Atlas, because it's radically a different film, and I think it's a very brave and fast-moving and exciting film, so I think you'll really love it. I hope you do.